folks. I am sitting here with the mayor of Gander, and I'm extremely excited to have a chat with this gentleman. We were just talking before we hit record of how, I guess, how busy this show is. Central Minex 2023 has been an amazing experience so far. The energy level is incredible. So, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to the mayor of Gander, and Percy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to those that don't know who you are.
Some say I don't require an introduction, but I requires an explanation. but that's what they say. That's not what I say. But as you just said, I'm Percy Farwell. I'm the mayor of the town of Gander. I have been for the last 5 years. And
COVID mayor, you did a bit of work.
All that, these things sort of follow me around because my first run around with municipal politics was many years ago when I was still working full time.
Yep.
I served on Gander's council for 12 years, from 93 to 05, and for 6 of that I was the deputy mayor. And then I sort of stepped aside for 12 years because I had a young family and wanted to, there was no time for full-time work, being a deputy mayor of Gander and trying to, live up to family commitments. So. But as that, the timing of that meant that I was the deputy mayor here when the whole 9/11 thing happened. So
wow.
So it seems those sorts of large events tend to follow me around in my municipal involvement, and that was quite an experience. Obviously, that's still being talked about. And then of course, no sooner did I become mayor in 2017, and then a couple years later, 2 or 3 years later, along comes a global pandemic that we have to deal with, or that the world has to deal with. I mean, as a municipality, obviously there were implications, a lot of implications for us, but that was something we all had to navigate our way through. That requires some resilience and some ingenuity. But we did it, as a population, as a province, as a country. I think we did pretty well in that whole process.
I think you're right.
Hopefully we'll never have, hopefully all the lessons we learned, we won't have to put into action, and hopefully we'll never see it again. But the reality is we likely will, or may. Maybe not in my lifetime, but it's going to.
So you're quite experienced in the municipal politics, and you've led, obviously, through some very challenging times. Have you ever seen anything like the optimism that you're feeling and seeing here now?
No, not really. I mean, this is like for this particular region, it's Gander and its surrounding area. But Gander as a service center, I can speak more specifically too. Gander's a pretty progressive, somewhat cosmopolitan place in the Newfoundland context, right? And that's because of our origins. We're as we say, we're an airport, not an outport. Most communities in this beautiful province of ours ultimately exist because of our relationship with the ocean and our fishing connections, that kind of stuff. Gander, relies heavily on fishery as a service center, but only exists because it had an airport first. I mean, it's one of those rare things, unique probably, where an airport was built and then a community grew up around it to support the airport, not the other way around. And that was just because of historically, in the 1930s, we weren't part of Canada then, of course, but and I wasn't born then, of course. But the Canadian and British governments wanted to find a location that was suitable for an airfield to support what was expected to be the advent of transatlantic flight, right? So this area where our airport is was identified, and an airfield was built. An airport, at the time, the largest airport in the world. There was no town here. There was nothing here. And then, a town grew around it because no sooner was the airport built than the Second World War came along, and it became a very strategic location for launching bombers to go overseas. And it was like the ferry command here during the Second World War saw about 20,000 aircraft assembled and sent across the ocean. So it was a big military build-up here. And along with that, I guess a lot of support services and a community had begun right around the airfield, not where we are now.
Did your parents grow up in the area?
No, my parents were from rural Newfoundland, from the northern peninsula.
Okay.
So after the Second World War, of course, then became the the beginnings of transatlantic commercial flight. And in those days, it was only the heads of state and celebrities and well-heeled people that were traveling internationally. And technology in aviation was such that you couldn't make the trip from North America to Europe without stopping in Gander. So everybody who's anybody was here. So that's kind of how and then in the 50s, it had grown to the point where we need to get the town away from the airfield, and the new town site was established in the 50s, and it's gone on from there. So we only exist because of our airport, but we've evolved into a major service center for a much larger population than our own, and here we are.
Well, yeah, I think when I listen to people like, say, Norm Mercer was on, and I had Peter Dimmel and Alan Keats, and they were talking about Newfound in particular gold and the gold deposit. I mean, my Lord, Percy, what are you going to do? Like, what's happening in terms of planning for that? It's one thing to have a lack of growth. It's another thing to have what's anticipated.
Yes, exactly. It still certainly has its challenges.
Yeah.
Challenges I prefer to have over worrying what to do with boarded up houses and boarded up buildings and shrinking population. Gander actually has, in the Newfoundland context, is also relatively unique. The population is growing and has been consistently growing here since 2001, since the census of 2001. The population of Gander has increased by 23%.
That's
while the population of the province has been shrinking. And in the most recent census, the population here still increased in the last 5 years, and almost all the major centres, with the exception of Paradise and CBS, saw declines in population. And this would predate all the excitement and the activity from the gold rush that's going on in Central now. So that's just expediting the growth, we feel, and I think going forward we'll see that in numbers too. So all that to say, it does create challenges because you've got to keep pace with that, particularly with things like your housing. We've got really good infrastructure here. We've got state-of-the-art wastewater treatment that we just completed, to the tune of $35 million. We're good for the next 50 years and for a lot of growth. Our water treatment is top of the line. We've got all those things in place. We don't have housing capacity for. We're pressured right now for housing capacity. It's very hard to find a place to buy or to rent in Gander right now, and that means there's upward pressure on pricing. That means affordable housing is a much bigger issue here now than it was previously. It's always been an issue everywhere, I guess. And although Gander's a very prosperous community in many respects, there's a lot of high-income earners here with NAV Canada and health services and these sorts of things. We do have the industry that supports what you're seeing here in shows like this, or the convention activity, the special event activity that Gander is known for and is a key part of our economy. That all depends on staff that don't make $100,000 a year, and so none of this doesn't keep ticking along, and our retail sector and our food service sector, these sorts of things, businesses that are now having to, because of the labor situation now, businesses that are having to go out of country to find workers to maintain full hours in their businesses, but they're not high-paid people. They find the employees, but they can't find somewhere for them to live. It's becoming increasingly difficult to meet those housing needs. So that's a challenge. It's like I say, it's a better challenge than not having people and not having growth, but it's a very serious challenge. And we don't want to be a community that we try to be an inclusive community. We don't want to be a community where people get left behind either, where people can't afford to live here, or never mind the capacity issue. Or maybe there's capacity, but you just can't afford. We don't want to be a community where people get left behind too. So these are a lot of the things that we are doing planning around. You can never start early enough.
No.
We're putting a lot of thought now into various ways to try to address those challenges, and looking across the country at other models, because it's not unique to Gander, you know, the issue of affordable housing or housing generally. So we're looking at, you know, how can we expedite the availability of the type of housing that we need. We're getting more post-secondary programming delivered through here now. The one restriction that will be on it, there's lots of people interested in taking it. Vermont has just established a school of nursing here. They started, year one was last year. The year two intake will be now in September. They're already up against people, you know, inquiring about registering for the bachelor nursing program, and indicating they've heard that it's hard for students to find a place to live. So we're working with developers here now to try and facilitate specific housing solutions for students, because that's Munn's nursing school, but we have CNA has a licensed practical nursing program they just started up last year, 30-something people per year, 2-year program, another 70 students a year. So these things are you know, we are planning, researching, looking at how a municipality can influence and expedite. I mean, we're typically not, we don't have responsibility for providing housing. I mean, in fact, we're not even, under our legislation, that's not really where we can go. But we certainly have a role to play in it, whether it's through our land use planning, our zoning, that sort of thing, right? Our regulatory environment and requirements and so on. There's a number of ways that, as a municipality, we can encourage solutions and support solutions to this issue. And we're looking into all those things. And these are things that the average person in the street would have no idea that is even an issue for us at this point, right? But it is, because, as you said, you know, you're seeing here that with these companies and all the talk you're hearing about the companies, the mining companies, the exploration companies that are immediately around us, that have taken up their businesses, are in some cases headquartered here in Gander, and that's only going to become bigger, right? And we know that we've got to. It's a bit late to get out ahead of it, but we got to catch up with it and stay ahead of it. And that's not easy to do.
Yeah, I gotta ask you this. Like, it's incredible. Like, you've got so much going on, and I hats off to anyone who puts their hat in the political ring. You know, you've been at it for quite a while. Not to put you on the spot, do you ever regret that I've gone for this and here I am, or is it just so overwhelmingly positive? You're passionate.
Well, it's not always overwhelmingly positive, but you know, you take the good with the bad. When you decide to get involved in this, you can't assume it's all buttercups, you know. So you know, you have to understand, and I have enough. You know, I had enough experience in my initial 12 years to know what I was getting myself into, you know, 12 years later, you know, after having taken some time off. So no, I never look for. People say, you know, why do you do that? I never want to do that, and I always say, listen, I don't need any sympathy. You know, I can decide tomorrow I don't want to do it anymore and just say goodbye. And in fact, nobody's forcing me to do it. So I ask people to let me do it, you know, to give me their endorsement to do it. So it's, you know, it is what it is. I mean, there's good days and bad days, and for me personally, the good days obviously outweigh the bad days, and the sense that I believe I can contribute positively to my community and to the growth of my community, and use whatever skills and background I have. That and everybody. That's the beauty of municipal councils. You know, you have a group of people sitting around the table who all come from different backgrounds and perspectives. Everybody brings something unique to the table, and I'm no different. And you just try to you know, optimize what you can get out of those skill sets, and that's what I try to do out of mine. So no, I don't really have days when I say, why am I doing this? There may be days when I reflect on how much longer do I want to do this, but no, I mean, you know, I'll know when that time comes, when I feel like I've got nothing left to offer, or when the people tell me that they're tired of what I'm offering, you know, that's the nature of the beast, right? But no, it's like I say, there's good times and bad times. I'm pretty bullish on my community and on my region. I do have more of a regional vision for how we fit into the grand scheme of things. It's not about municipal boundaries. Gander has municipal boundaries, and I'm Mayor Gander. So, but that's not. Those boundaries are in relation to, who you can collect taxes off of and who you provide services to, that kind of stuff. In terms of community, we are, the downtown or the service center for a much larger community of 40, 50,000 people. There's a lot of municipalities, and we all have, we're mutually dependent, right? Like Gander does not prosper the way it's prospering without, a vital surrounding area, and we need sustainable communities around us, because that's a big part of what drives this community is its role in providing services to a lot of communities that, in and of themselves, can't avail of those things. So I like where we are as a service center, and I feel an obligation to the people in that surrounding area, and our community feels an obligation to the people in that surrounding area, because we exist partly because of them. We prosper largely because of them. And so, when a community is involved in the fishing industry is caught, we bleed, and vice versa. If we weren't able to sustain and provide the types of services and facilities that we have that people from around the area can use, and if we don't have the retail services on the scale that we have them, that kind of stuff, well, then everybody loses, because we have a Walmart supercenter. None of those other communities in that catchment area of ours is ever going to have a Walmart supercenter. So, unless it's here, everybody doesn't have one, and I just use them as an example, but those sorts of things. So, and I feel really good about being a part of a leadership in a community that has that role in this region, and as long as I feel that I'm contributing something positively to it, I'll probably want to stay with it, but that could change tomorrow.
Well, I can tell just by talking to you, the community is under great leadership. I'm going to say one thing: the fact that the town and the Gander Area Chamber of Commerce came together on this trade show, it's brilliant. I think, talk a little bit about that, because it's working really well, whatever you did in preparation for this.
It's really important, obviously, for the municipal government leadership to be engaged and supportive and to be collaborative with the representatives of the business community. We represent the community as a whole as elected officials. The Chamber of Commerce represents the business interests in not just Gander, but Gander and area, right? And so it's important that we have a strong relationship, and we stick to our respective lanes, but also mutually support each other and, take each other to task if need be. If the chamber needs to take us to task, they should. If it's in the interest of the business community that they have concerns. And so we have a good working relationship with the chamber. We certainly respect, their role in being the touch point for so many. They got, over 300 members in this region. And something like this is obviously a very important, this type of trade show we're at here. It's a supplier development role. It's introducing, in many cases, there are businesses here from all over, but there are many businesses here from the local area that have goods and services to offer to the mineral exploration and mining sector. And these sorts of events are opportunities for them to identify where there may be niches that they can take advantage of, how they can capitalize on this type of activity, and similarly how their provision of these services helps support the growth of the companies that are here prosecuting the mining sector. So it's we're happy to work, and I think it's necessary, it's essential that we work with the business community, and the easiest way to do that is through your Chamber of Commerce. And this is a good example of a good collaboration. The Chamber wants to connect the business community to this immense opportunity that's being presented in front of us here now. We certainly want to support that wherever we can. We have roles to play, they have roles to play. And this is a true partnership between the two of us, and this is not the only time we'll do things like that, but it's a good example of it, for sure.
Wow. Well, folks, there you have it. It's Mayor Percy Farwell of Gander. And Gander, as you heard, is certainly quite a catchment area. I think what I've seen here, and I've been to a lot of trade shows in my life, this is something else. And there's so much excitement. And I can tell you, sir, there's great leadership being shown.
Well, thank you.
I was lucky enough to meet a couple of your councillors as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
We've got a good team. There's no doubt about it. And
thank you.
There's no one man or one woman shows around here. We're pretty excited about this. What we're seeing. This is sort of, to us, it's the entry level to this type of event.
Yeah.
And we're going to assess how this went. We're going to take feedback on how this went. And we intend to make this an annual thing, and we intend to make this the preeminent event for this sector. And we'll fix what needs to be fixed, and improve what needs to be improved on, and enhance what can be enhanced on. And
it's hard to believe forward. It's 2023, and this is the inaugural event, frankly.
for this, yeah. But it is, and so the intention is that this is bigger and better, and that these exhibitors that are here have a rewarding experience. Yes. It works for them. They don't pay big money and incur expenses to be here just to look nice and to satisfy us that we had a full floor here, which we do. They need to benefit from it. The delegates need to benefit from it. They need to learn. They need to, they need to be able to interact and network and establish relationships. And that's what these things are all about. And I think, from my judgment, and maybe a bit biased, but it seems to be working quite well, certainly as an inaugural event. And, people can look forward to it being bigger and better.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for tuning in. Mayor Percy Farwell, Gander, you've done yourselves proud by this trade show, I can tell you that. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.